Welcome to Friends in the Corner podcast, a new podcast experience here in the bluegrass state of Kentucky, and this is episode 6, and I'm your host, Dan Polly. And today, we're going to be interviewing Ryan Koch from Seedleaf. Not Ryan Couch, not Ryan Koch, but Ryan Koch. And Ryan has this cool nonprofit here in town that does a lot of cool stuff with creating these community gardens for low-income areas around Lexington. So you want to hear about the cool stuff that he's doing with those gardens and some of the big events that they've got coming up here. So be sure to check out Seedleaf and check it into this interview when we go into it here in a little bit with Ryan. But before we move into the interview, we do want to take a moment just to give our thoughts and prayers to all those that are affected by Tropical Storm Florence that's happening out in the Carolinas here. I know I've got a lot of friends and family that are out that way, and they're all safe right now. But there's still a lot of people who are being impacted by the storm. So be sure to keep all of them in your prayers for Tropical Florence. And always try to find ways you can try to give back or try to help out people that are in need with those type of issues. I'm going to be posting some links in my description here for the podcast to the American Red Cross and a couple other ways where you can give to try to help out with those in the tropical storms. But be sure to keep them all in your thoughts and prayers over this time. It wouldn't be a podcast if I didn't give my plugs for the week, correct? So are you following us on Twitter? Are you following us on Facebook? Are you following us on Instagram? If you haven't already, you should definitely go and check us out. We're always posting new stuff onto our Twitter and Facebook pages. So be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FITC Podcast. That's FITC Podcast. Remember, you can always email the show at friendsinthecorner@gmail.com. That's friendsinthecorner, all together lowercase, at gmail.com. And always be sure to go on to iTunes and Stitcher and leave us some reviews so that we can continue to grow this podcast even more. So we thank you guys for your support that you've given us so far. It's been a fun month with all these different interviews. We actually just recorded a few different things. So starting on here in October, we're just very excited. We're going to be trying to move away from the interview format that we've been enjoying for the past 2 months now, and we're going to try to give you guys some more original content that we are doing. So I hope you guys enjoy what we've got coming down the pipeline here. But for now, we are still sticking to our interview concepts here for the next couple weeks, and we've got another good interview here ready for you guys today with Mr. Ryan Koch. So Ryan has started this nonprofit here in town called Seedleaf. The idea was just to help provide good, nutritious food to low-income areas around the Lexington area that he's been a part of since he moved here with his wife back in, I believe, 2003, as he said. He'll mention that in his interview here. But you want to hear about some of the cool stuff that they're doing, some of the stuff they're trying to do just to give back to the Lexington community, and just maybe some stuff you want to check out with them down the road here as well. They're always looking for volunteers, and they'll talk about that and some other opportunities. So be sure to check out Seedleaf as we get ready to jump in here. And if you know any other nonprofits that we should highlight here in the Lexington area, we love to hear them. We want to talk and highlight and give some spotlight to more cool organizations that are doing good things in the Lexington area. So if you guys know of any nonprofits or any other cool organizations that are doing cool stuff in the area, please let me know. Email me at friendsinthecorner@gmail.com or find me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and let me know, because we want to share more stories like this from Seedleaf. So without further ado, guys, we're going to get ready to go into our interview. With that, this is Mr. Ryan Koch. Well, we're here with Mr. Ryan Koch, not Coach, Ryan Koch from Seedleaf. How you doing today, Ryan?
I'm very well, doing good.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, I'm excited to have you on the podcast here. I just want to say thank you so much for your time. And it's just funny, I've heard of Seedleaf for a while now. I've seen your T-shirts around in Cup of Commonwealth and a few other places.
Oh, good.
But I've just never known what you guys do.
Okay, good. Okay.
So I thought, hey, this would be a good podcast episode just to hear a little bit about you, hear a little bit about what Seedleaf does, and hopefully get more people interested in what you guys are doing and what you guys are going to continue to do in here in the community. So with that said, I want to just ask you here, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Sure. Yeah, I'm the director of Seedleaf, and the mission of Seedleaf is to nourish communities by growing and sharing food. This has been my full-time work. We've been going for about 10 years, and it's just a lot of fun figuring out how to uh, grow gardens, invite neighbors and volunteers into meaningful work experiences. We're doing a lot of composting, and I've just been learning this job as I go along.
Did you have any gardening experience before you started Seedleaf?
I had more interest than aptitude. There's been a lot of things we kind of learn as we go along. I traded my work for food at a friend's farm for 2 summers, and then kind of realized I love this so much. I'd love to do something in Lexington for folks that don't have the same privilege that I had of driving, an hour outside of town to go enjoy nature and that good food.
So why Lexington? What need did you see here in Lexington for something like Seedleaf to be around in?
That's a good question. It was about 13 years ago, my wife and I moved to the north side of Lexington, and we live near Castlewood Park. And we love where we live. We kept meeting neighbors who had diet-related health problems. And a lot of our neighbors, they just didn't have good access to that fresh local food. The local food movement, it has been great in our region, but I think it has left a number of people out. They're just kind of priced out of that movement. So I and some friends thought that if we could grow some gardens just in neighborhoods where people knew from signage and from different outreach things that we could do, we could let folks know that they could come and harvest things growing right in their neighborhood. So the need was, maybe just an outsider's perceived need that, we should have more food available, and we should be able to grow it and share it, and see if that helps in the long run, helping people eat more healthfully.
And so when did you guys so you guys are doing these through these community gardens that you guys have around here?
Yeah.
So how many community gardens do you guys have at the moment?
I think there's 14 free you-pick community gardens where anybody is welcome. On 13 of them, there's no fence or gate or security measures. It's just hey, come on in, take what you recognize. We try to have a Get in the Garden event at each of these, so that there's a Seedleaf staff or a trusted volunteer that can oversee other volunteers. And they're always, we ask this staff person to always go out of your way to invite people in. If anybody has any little bit of interest, give them a quick tour. It's okay if some of the weeding doesn't get done today, if we make a good connection with a neighbor and inevitably neighbors have been curious, just like you said, curious about how this works, and can I come get stuff, and who is this for? That long, slow work of making connections one at a time, that's been going on over the last, decade. So, but still a lot of ground to cover, because it still looks like a weird countercultural thing to just grow food to give it away.
Well, and that's, I guess, one thing I was going to ask is, how is it, and you kind of talked about it's just open access, anyone can go to them. So, and you guys have like someone that comes over and works with them and stuff like that. So how are things decided to go into the garden? Like, can anyone just come and plant in there, or do you guys have like a setup for what produce you actually do plant in your gardens?
Our default has been to just grow a variety of things.
Mm-hmm.
You just never know when something's going to fail in this climate, or we get a late frost, or which bugs are coming through. So we just try to have a good variety of things. The things we know people love are a big slicing tomato, onions. That's a real fan favorite. And then have to have collard greens. but I'm also kind of challenging the users of the garden to think about these, here's like a Swiss chard that's so easy to grow in our climate. um, we do a lot of cherry tomatoes because then kids can come and just have I don't know that I want a whole tomato, but I'll try a cherry tomato. That's like a easier sell, I think. But yeah, good question. What goes in the gardens? It's in some of our spaces, we weren't able to get to a couple of our, one place in particular, just consistently like did not make it onto our list of things to do. And so one of our neighbors started to just show up, cleared a space, and planted what he wanted, which that's kind of one of Seedleaf's failures. That's our great success stories from 2018 is that somebody just kind of came along and helped himself to planting what he wanted, which is great. I wish it hadn't happened because of our neglect, but I'm so glad it happened. But yeah, whenever neighbors or volunteers kind of show some initiative and interest, we always try to like take a step back and see how much they want to be doing. The end goal of Seedleaf is that Lexington won't need a Seedleaf. Everybody understands, okay, here, we understand how to get in a garden and how to make things grow and when to harvest and things like that. That'd be the dream.
And so you guys now are you have a 13, 14 gardens around the city here. Where was your first garden at?
Oh, actually, our first one in 2007, we had one that was on the south side of town, in a residence off of Parker's Mill Road. That's where we were. There was a flat spot, and we had probably an eighth of an acre turned over, and things went really well that year. So my handful of volunteers that year. I had a coach that was saying if you had a nonprofit, you could be doing this in a lot of different places. You might qualify for grants. You could qualify for donations. So we did that. I made my volunteers be on a board, which is a kind of a dirty trick. And then we started it up. And in 2008, we had 3 gardens. And then 2009, we had 10. So yeah, but it started kind of on a flat space on the south side of town, actually.
And now you've just continued to grow and grow, no pun intended, but around the city. Is there any plans to go outside of Lexington? Have you guys looked at trying to expand into Louisville or anywhere else?
Well, we really appreciate what folks are doing at Louisville Grows.
So there's other nonprofits around.
Absolutely, yeah. And when I visited with them, I feel like they've got so much good going on. I don't know that I see room in that market. We did have a friend, like somebody reached out from Franklin County, but really we kind of just want to be centered here in Lexington for the time being. And really with the board, my staff and I are trying to figure out what to be doing in the second 10 years. Some of the things we've tried just haven't landed. There's some things we're doing a lot less of that we did more of 5 or 4 years ago. So it's all just it feels like a big friendly experiment. But going outside of Fayette County, we just haven't totally been resourced to do that, nor explicitly invited to do that. We have done a little bit of consultation with people that they might have access to some church-owned land. Like, how do we get started? I'm always glad to have that phone call and say, here's what we did wrong. Like, don't do it this way, but here's some things we've seen that work. So.
Okay. Okay. Well, cool. So you're staying Lexington based, but hey, Lexington's supporting you guys well. Looks like every time I go into Cup, they always have good things to say about you guys. And
good.
Yeah. So, one thing you were talking about at the start of this interview was about composting. Could you tell us a little bit about what composting exactly is?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. So what we do each week, we're supported by the Division of Waste Management to do this, but we pick up at about 33 or 34 restaurants and kitchens in 5-gallon buckets. We pick up a lot of pre-consumer food waste. So and at Cup of Commonwealth, it's like 5 gallons of coffee grounds every day somehow. So we've got, our town's got a real coffee drinking situation. But
Sal's doing his job, man. He's just
yeah,
trying to get coffee out there.
yeah, yeah, schlepping the coffee. Um, but those coffee grounds and all that food waste, we can set down into piles at some of our gardens. We have about 10 different drop-off locations. And over time, the piles, after a little while, we stop adding to those compost piles. We turn them with volunteer labor. And then at another point in the season, we've got this fantastic soil amendment that has it's decreased to half of the material that we put in. I mean, this is the composting process is like photosynthesis going backwards. So water vapor is released, heat is released, and all this rotten food turns back into its constituent parts, and it looks and smells like the forest floor. It's a great soil amendment. We can set it right on our beds after we've pulled everything out, or when we're planting seeds. Sometimes I'll just set some of that finished compost right on top of those seeds. And I know things like watermelon and squash, they just can't get enough compost. We probably over apply, but we also have enough that we can welcome area gardeners to just bring their own buckets and fill up their buckets with finished compost. So it's a neat program, and we do our best composting work when we're sharing that knowledge with people. So we'll have more Compost 101 events. We'll have one coming up on September 21st in connection with our garden grill out that day. And that's just here's how you do it. We'll be doing this outside so we can actually kind of get our hands dirty and make a simple pile.
Well, awesome. And so you're just trying to help promote people to consider composting as an alternative to just throwing stuff away, trying to recycle what stuff they can, pretty much.
That's
right?
Right. Yeah, we've done a real study of recycling, and I almost imagine composting as a kind of a creative reuse of something that was landfill bound. Our friends at Glean, Kentucky have taught me that 40% of all the food grown in our country ends up in the landfill, whether it's harvested and it can't be used at the grocery store, or it's all the way to cooked and it's not, with our catering the way it is, like people tend to just overproduce. We just can't eat as much food as we've been growing here. So much of that is landfill bound. Glean, Kentucky does an awesome job about, taking food that's still food for people and getting it to some of our feeding organizations. And then after that stuff gets, it keeps decomposing, then we can step in and help people take responsibility for some of the stuff. Maybe they bought too many squashes that week, or, we can alter that each household's footprint a little bit. Especially for folks in Lexington with enough yard that they can kind of sneak a compost pile right into their backyard somehow. That's who we're trying to appeal to.
Well, and we've been mentioning throughout this interview. So you talk about creating these community gardens for people to come get access to produce. Talk about composting, but you also mentioned that you're looking to try to educate people.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about Compost 101, and you have a couple other programs here that I've done some research on. Your Seeds program, your Master Community Gardener. Could you tell us a little bit about some of these programs that you guys have been offering?
Oh yeah, sure. The Seeds is my favorite thing that we do. We just had 21 middle school aged kiddos from the neighborhoods that we serve show up and work hard through the summer. They would give us, 2 full mornings of work, and it got hot, this summer. We didn't have a lot of rain out days, but they moved mulch for us. They kind of helped us trim some trees. We did a couple fun activities. We visited Food Chain. We visited Locust Trace, and those are things that I'd love for your listeners to peek at. Food Chain is a fantastic organization.
What exactly is Food Chain?
They do aquaponics. So they're growing lettuces under lights, and they're fertilizing that with the tilapia that are in tanks nearby. So our kids really got excited about that visit. And then the Seeds kids eventually earned a $200 stipend for full participation, which is that feels like a big deal in middle school. It's fun to go spend $100 and not have to ask anybody, permission. So that's been a fun one. That program just expanded. We doubled our student body this year. So excited about what's in store for those kiddos next year. And then the Master Community Gardener training, we're gonna reframe that as a civic gardener training and try to avoid some master language, because it's not master gardener. Like, it's not that long or that in depth of a training, but we'll ask people to reserve 4 weeks to come learn everything we think you need to know to get started gardening in community. So this kind of has to do with some of the how, like how do you plant this and when do the beans go in, things like that. We bring in some folks from UK Extension and different people that we trust to grow things the right way, and trying to use organic standards, even though Seedleaf is not certified organic. And then the other part of that is the why. Why would we be growing food together? The human connection component, how to welcome people into a space, how to not get too frustrated when all the tomatoes are harvested by somebody. And, it's just kind of, it's a situation. The training gives us a chance to temper people's expectations about what we'll be doing together in the garden, and just get ready for some disappointments. Sometimes the bugs get all the beans before we can get them, just things like that, things that gardeners come to know. We deal with a lot of new gardeners and new growers, and trying to help them get ready for kind of a long, hot summer, but also just know why it's important as we work with, in coordination with our neighbors.
So I was actually also wondering about this too. So you've got your community gardens going on throughout the year, but what about in the winter when it's a little harder to grow some stuff? How do you guys situate for those type of situations?
Sure. Yeah. So part of that is I just actually ordered my hardneck garlic, but we do tie up some rows and boxes just with garlic, which I think is a fantastic crop, that it still has some green in it in February and March, and we plant that in November, so it overwinters. I just think it's a neat crop, and then we harvest that in June or so.
Gotcha.
Other things we're doing in the winter, it's I think fall is a kind of an untapped opportunity for gardeners. Personally, my home garden does not look great. I'm having a hard time getting excited about keeping going. But the Seedleaf gardens, we've got a lot of stand-up volunteers and folks that want to keep going. So, we're planting collards right now. We're planting cabbages that'll finish before the hard frost. And some things that are just frost tolerant, they'll be fine, and they'll even get sweeter, like those collards, kale, mustard greens. So we'll garden into the winter, and then we know that we can use that floating row cover. One trade name is like Remay. They have it at Southern States here in Lexington, but we can cover that up, and that'll grab us 2 or 3 or 5 degrees worth of protection, so that we can be growing greens into January in a mild winter.
So you got all your bases covered, because winter is coming. So
we can stay busy. We're also getting ready for fall and winters of our fundraiser season. So we're trying to make sure people know about all the good stuff that went on in the summer gardens, all our great programming, and why it'd be great if they continue to support us. That's kind of between now and year end is where we turn our focus.
Okay. Well, cool. And for a lot of these resources and a lot of these programs, if people want to get involved in, how can they find this information?
Yeah. So our website has the getting the garden events, I think, still listed. We'll still be doing that stuff into October. October is when we also start to kind of button things down and get ready for the winter. We kind of pull those really sad tomatoes and pepper plants that are hanging on. Those will come out, but still need volunteer help. And it's a nice time to get outside and enjoy the fall weather. So that'll still be underway. We have a presence on Facebook, and that's one way we reach out and let people know about actionable steps and how to come out and get involved. Well, I also want your listeners to know we'll have a garden grill out coming up. September 21st is a Friday evening from 5 to 7 at 909 North Lime, our North Pole Community Garden. We don't need a RSVP. Some people will bring stuff to share. It's just a potluck picnic that's free. It's fun. All ages welcome. There'll be a quick garden tour. We'll show you what we're doing. We'll do a compost demo and a quick compost 101. We might even do a seed saving activity. On the Move Art Studio will be there for a fun art activity with young people.
So September 21st. Mark it down on your calendars, everybody. This episode is going to come out on September 19th, so just in time. Make sure we get the push in for you guys.
Thank you. Good, yeah.
Absolutely. So, we've talked a lot about, what you guys are doing, how you guys got started, and, what you guys are trying to do. But where do you see Seedleaf going from here, 2018? Where do you guys see it going down the road here, or what you're hoping for? You said that you want to get to a point where there's no need for a Seedleaf.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
How do you get there?
Yeah. So we have a 2-acre parcel where we've made room for a CSA farmer called Andrew English. He's growing. His garden looks great. We've got a group of like a refugee farmer co-op. They have a long band there, 100-foot long space where they're growing something that I don't recognize, but it's thriving here. It's doing great. They're happy. So, and then we also have a community garden strip, a space where we're growing that to share with people in the apartments nearby. But we'd really love to further develop this space, make it kind of our home base for programming and operations. In 10 years, we've been very distributed and, kind of all over if there was a Seedleaf farm, it's like a multi-site farm situation, very small parcels. And sometimes that's been a challenge to kind of figure out how all the pieces work together and which plot isn't getting the care it deserves. So we're thinking about trying to, centralize somewhat and have one place that's our home place, even while we keep these other gardens going. I think that's one direction. It might be neat to just kind of imagine our space as a network of gardens. And if people wanted to walk through from several different, block to block, and they know that the asparagus is over here and the strawberries might come up over here. I kind of like the idea of that. Because our goal is just to increase and promote it's the connections between people and people, between people and the land, between people and their food. I think we've kind of set the table for some of that, but I'd like to see our next 10 years focus on how to do that even more explicitly, how to get people to connect across cultural and racial boundaries. I and the rest of the staff have a real heart for that going forward.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we hope this continues to see you guys grow, and hope to continue to learn more about you guys, and more than just t-shirts and a coffee shop. You guys are doing some big stuff here in our community. So,
thank you. Yeah.
You guys, is there any untapped areas in Lexington you're still trying to get community gardens in?
Well, I mean, at this point, I don't think Lexington is saturated for community gardens.
Okay.
I think we're doing a lot of our focus is on the north side of Lexington.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd love to support other people in what they're doing in other neighborhoods. So, there's one that we kind of helped set up on Rosemont Gardens, but we've never done any maintenance for. Like there's a team that does an amazing job. It always looks good. And there's little pockets. There's one in the Kenwick neighborhood. We kind of helped that group get going, but are not responsible for any maintenance. We kind of helped Southland Christian Church do a restart, last year, and now they've got a great group of volunteers that are keeping it going. So with our small staff, I think, we're doing maybe as much community gardening as we can handle. Though we do want to make sure people throughout town understand that we can install a garden at a residence or an office or church, house of worship. We can set them up. We can be there for weekly maintenance for a fee. And that's a service that we offer that will help offset the cost of our free programming. We also can pick up compost at residences, again, houses of worship, whatever. And that's something we would bill for so that we can keep doing our free programming.
Awesome. All right. Well, Ryan, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, man. The last thing I just want to do is just give the floor to you. So if there's, if you want to share your social media for our listeners, if you want to talk about some upcoming events like you've already talked about previously, the floor is yours to do that.
So yeah, just to reiterate, our garden grill out will be September 21st from 5 to 7 at the North Pole Community Garden at 909 North Limestone. Seedleaf is on Facebook. You can search for us on Instagram, Twitter, and seedleaf.org is a good spot to keep up with us. Otherwise, big things. I don't know if I have anything to share for. In October we will be kind of the featured nonprofit with Atomic Ramen. They're going to do a dine out for good kind of thing for us. So if you go to Atomic Ramen in the barn at the summit, and tell them Seedleaf sent you, then I think they'll give us a portion of their sales for the night. So we're looking forward to that.
Hey, you always need an excuse to go to Atomic Ramen. So
yeah,
I like it. So
yeah, absolutely.
And I'm looking forward to that grill. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, we'll have a good time.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. Hopefully we'll get to have you guys back on the podcast here again soon as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, we love it. Thanks so much.
All right, guys, and that's it for our interview with Ryan Koch from Seedleaf. Be sure to go check out their website and all the cool stuff they're doing at seedleaf.org. You can also be sure to follow them on Facebook and Twitter at SeedleafLex. They're also on Instagram. I forgot to mention that, at SeedleafLex as well. So go check out all the cool stuff they're doing. Head out to their garden grill out on September 21st as well. Go meet Ryan and all the cool people over at Seedleaf and see all the cool stuff they're doing also. And speaking of cool stuff, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. We're at FITC Podcast, and be sure to always email the show at friendsinthecorner@gmail.com. That's friends in the corner, all together, lowercase, at gmail.com. And like I mentioned at the start of the podcast, guys, be sure to be keeping those in mind that are affected by the tropical storms out in the Carolinas. Links are in the description below to donate to the Red Cross, and let's see what we can do to help out and be a friend in someone's corner here today. But that's all we have for this week on Friends in the Corner, so be sure to check out next week for our last interview of the month. I hope you guys like beer. That's a wrap.